Hi, I'm Robert. Welcome back to another edition of the High Deseret Ranch Channel. Today continues just one of many videos in the breeding stock series here on the ranch, designed to help you make the best decision for your setup, whether it be large, small, or just starting out, or getting back into the game. Regardless, come along, let us be your ticket to help escape the ordinary, and let's talk breeding stock. So without breeding stock, you basically can't perpetuate your operation, or if you have a small homestead, they're vital to providing food for your family. Or if you're a large business that want to go semi-commercial, the breeding stock's important to continue to be that continuous cash flow into your farm or ranching operation. But there are a few things to consider, and one of the reasons why I started doing these videos in this particular series is there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that and channels that even claim that you can make a lot of money off of just a little bit of money in a few animals. And why that might be true in 1% or probably less than 1%, like 0.01% or 0.1% of all situations and setups, I'm going to try and provide you with some realistic numbers, because there are some various factors that are called input costs, and that's something that a lot of these videos fail to take into account, or the input costs. When you truly listen to their videos, they're not taking in a lot of things to consider, such as setup costs, your maintenance costs, and probably one of your most expensive outside of purchasing the initial animal. And in the long run, that will be more money, especially as it concerns your breeding stock, are going to be your feed costs. So that said, there's a few questions that you need to consider if you're going to get a breeding stock of any kind of animal. In this case, we're going to talk about that of a first-year gilt, where a gilt is a female hog that hasn't been bred. So she could have already had litters, but she hasn't been bred. But in this case, we're going to talk about a first-year gilt, one that has never littered before, and the setup, or excuse me, the costs on this first-year gilt are going to be slightly different than a sow that has been bred and she has had 1 or 2 or 3 or several litters. So something to consider with your breeding stock is, A, do you have the space for the breeding stock, as they do need a slightly larger pen size and say just a hog that you're going to feed out in this case. A, are they allowed? That's something to check on. And the cost. Again, going back to that input cost, the cost might not be worth it. And you might find that between the time and the cost, it is easier just to pay like a stud fee or something of that nature. Essentially, you're trying to find someone with a board that they can bring to your place, or you take your gilt to be bred by a reputable breeder. That is something that is key when if you are going to have any sort of breeding stock. Is the breeds must be key as far as the genetics and the type. Now, what I have and what we're running are what they're called the heritage breeds. You're looking at like your Tamworth, Duroc, Berkshire, Yorkshire, those type of things, just to name a few. So those are the ones that have been around since forever. They've been tested, tried and true on the ground, as far as here on the dirt and whatnot, not raised inside a building. And so without further ado, let's talk about some of the input costs, shall we? So before I get started, this is kind of a personal preference, but it's something that's been tried and true for my grandma, and as I've talked to other reputable breeders, and something that we're following here on the ranch. And that is where we are taking the gilt and we are breeding her at 9 to 10 months. So by the time that she farrows, has her piglets, she'll be just over a year old, which allows for the sow to, it doesn't stunt her growth by breeding her early, and it allows for larger litter sizes in subsequent farrowing periods. So that's something to keep in mind. 9 to 10 months to have your gilt bred. And we're going to go off of a number of 9 piglets, and that will come into be a key factor later on. 9 is a pretty good average. It's not small. It's not huge like you can get with some of these old-time heritage breeds, but it's a good number, at least for ours. And I'll go ahead and put up a graphic or some numbers right here so you can follow along with me, so you don't have to keep backing up the film. So one of the things that's going to be your most expensive cost, and I'm just going to go off a sow that's $350 for a purchase cost, which isn't bad. Again, it's not overly expensive, but something you'll quickly see is that is a small cost in the lifetime of your sow. Is she has litters. You can basically plan on 5 years of good littering, of having good litters. Possibly, that's a good industry average when it comes to a sow. So it's going to be your feed cost. That's going to be your biggest cost in the lifetime of your sow, and it's going to be an important one because good nutrition starts with a good feed. And so I've done a little bit of research. Again, these numbers aren't exact, but I really hope that they give you a great base start, so you consider whether or not that's something you want to do. So we're going to go with a 14% protein, which is great for a first-year gilt, or even like a sow. You might have to up that a little bit once she starts coming in milk, maybe up to an 18%, but we're going to just go off of 14% for a baseline at $30 a hundredweight. So if you're going off of the 9 months and then breeding her, and then she's pregnant for 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days, you'll be looking in that basically that period till she litters, you're looking at plus the time that she's also 8 weeks post delivering and having farrowing, you're going to be looking at close to 2,300 pounds of feed. And if you want a little bit more detail, here's a plug for my other video. I have a video that's how much a daily ration should you give your hogs, and I break down numbers not just for a feeder hog, but also gilt, boar, etc. So 2,300 pounds is what you're looking at, and if you're paying about $30 a hundredweight for that, you're looking at a total of $690. Now, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as the saying goes. There's always, I would always factor in some sort of vet or medical expense. Not that necessarily you need to go visit the vet, but some sort of, again, that medical expense, keeping your sows healthy. Some people, they don't want to inject a lot of shots, but if you are going to do one thing, especially with your breeding stock, is you're going to want to get in front of the parasite worm problem. Don't even let them come around. And so you figure during this, up until the first time that she farrows, you figure a $25 medical cost. And a little hydrated lime in the pens doesn't hurt either. And so you can usually pick up a 40-pound bag, and that helps not only kill the parasites, but also keep the stench down at your hog pens. So you figure about $20 for your first year gilt up until the time that she farrows. Now, you always want to, I went back to the sow costs, and I like to break down the numbers. You figure if you're going to have her for a few years, there's going to be a slight cost every single year for that depreciation on that sow, which you got to figure in that cost, because it's aside from your feed costs, it's the second largest cost that you're going to have. And so I basically figured a few dollars per piglet per breeding cycle. So I actually broke it down to $1.80 per piglet based upon that nine piglet number. And then there's always the housing and fencing cost. You can check out another video where it's a beginner's guide introduction to hog pens. And with these pens they're built to actually not only house like feeder stock, like fattening up hogs to go to slaughter, but they're built for the breeding stock as well. So check out that other video. But I did the math, and I just figured between the initial construction cost and then the ongoing maintenance cost, I did $25 for this particular this breeding period up until her first litter. And so and then I just did a simple 5% overhead charge on top of all my expenses, and it came out to about $38. So I'm sure the moment you all been waiting for, and that is, well, what's the total cost for my first year gilt, which is all the way up having her first litter, and then once they're weaned at 7 to 8 weeks. Well, comes out to a total of $799.88. So let's just round it up to $800. And in order to, excuse me, in order to make that worth it, you're going to have to at least have, if she has a litter of 9 piglets, your basically cost per piglet is a nice, cool looking number of $88.88 per piglet if she has 9. So if she has less than that, the break-even number is going to be even less. So it just depends on how many piglets she has, but it gives you a good idea of what your input costs are going to be into your litter if she has 9. Obviously, if she has more, the only cost that's going to change is that feed cost. And again, I would reference that video that I produced about how much you need to feed your hogs, where I give a detailed breakdown on a sow that's bred and unbred, and that's also in milk too. So hopefully this is very helpful for you too. If you like what you see, please like, subscribe. I will continue periodically to add videos to the breeding stock series playlist. But I hope that as you watch all these videos, that it will help to kind of break up that fantasy, the YouTube myth, the clickbait, whatever you want to call it, that's pervade. Because if you have the wrong numbers or you get the wrong idea, you can really get yourself into a big bind financially, especially. And then in the end, it's the animals that suffer because you don't have the adequate setup. It costs way too much money, and then you're forced to sell or cull the animals or something like that. So again, I appreciate you coming along today and seeing just what it's like to be here in the high desert of the Intermountain West, and coming along with me and also Shane to find out just what it's like to live the high life here only on the High Deseret Ranch Channel.